Hey YouTube, I wanted to do a quick comparison between the ATACR and the NX8 1:8. Now these are similar but very different. I'm sure you've heard that a lot when comparing these. The ATACR set up in this mount, which is a Reptilia 1.5 with an acro on a ROF, ROF. By the way, that 34mm Reptilia 1.54 inch mount plus ROF naked comes in at 6.5 ounces. Anyway, as you're looking at it right here, plus the rear Tenebrix cap, this scope comes in at 32.1 ounces. If I were to put the acro on the NX8 and I were to put its rear cap on, it would come out to 26.9 ounces. So you got a 5.2 ounce difference. The field of view is very similar on 1X and 8X, with the ATACR actually having the disadvantage, even though it has a 34mm tube. What I want to show you is the eye box here. This is where the ATACR really shines, and where my phone does not. But this is a cedar tree at 125 meters. And as you can see, the eye box is a little tricky, but we're getting there. Now, one thing I want to point out at the peripheral edges of this image, it's crisp. And that's kind of a big deal. The full field of view on this is very flat, and the depth of focus is even. When we take our NX8 and put it in the same situation, we start to see what we're talking about, depth of focus. Now, I chose 125 yards for this cedar tree on purpose because both scopes have their parallax fixed at 125 yards. But you can see at the edges of that image, the NX8 starts to get a little bit blurry. That's our depth of focus coming in. For night vision, guys, zone 1 on the NX8 is super clear. And with the ATACR, that zone spreads all the way out to the very limits of zone 3. Also, the eye box on the ATACR is a little more comfortable to get behind. Let's go ahead, throw the illumination on. I think that for the lighting conditions we're looking at right now, that 7 in both optics is appropriate. They both have off zones between each illumination setting. And the one control difference is the whole rear ocular on the ATACR spins, whereas you have a traditional magnifier ring on the NX8. This is our ATACR. If I can hold steady. There we go. Let's go to our NX8, which does have a finickier eye box, but I'm able to brace up on my railing a little better and hold the camera a little steadier due to where it's placed on the railing. Again, you see that soft focus around the edges. To me, that's really annoying. I know some people may not care that much. I do. Also, when I shift the image, you get just kind of some walking of everything, like like you're giving the image a TBI, if that makes sense. There's kind of some sheer with it, little funhouse mirror type deal. Here's our ATACR, ATACR, how do you pronounce it? Much more stable image, much crisper edge to edge. When I shift it, the image stays a lot flatter. But alright, enough of that. Y'all are wondering about the 1X performance, and I'm going to deliver with that. So, turn them both to 1 power. And I'm going to crank our illumination to 8. As you can see here, the whole ocular turns. And it's not exactly easy. It is butter smooth, but it's like cold butter. I think that's the best way to describe it. Adjusting the ATACR is like cutting through cold butter, and adjusting the NX8 is like cutting through warm butter. I think that's the best way to relate it. Here's our ATACR 1X. Very flat image. I think we may need to go up a little past 8 on that light colored building due to the way the camera is. I assure you, to my eyes, it is super bright. We'll just crank them up to 10. Nuclear. Well, you can see it's nuclear. And to my eyes, it's blazing nuclear. This is a camera thing. There we go. You can see that image stays pretty flat. Very generous eye box. Not bad. Here's our NX8. You can definitely see a lot more warping around the edges. If you look at the foundation as well as the roof, we can kind of bend them. Not a bad eye box, but not as generous as the ATACR. As you notice, that ATACR is just a very flat image. Not quite that disappearing Razor HD2 bezel effect that you get. And I did take the scope caps off so you could see that. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more distortion on the NX8. One last thing I want to touch on is chromatic aberration. I'm going to turn the illumination off, crank them to 10x, and aim them at the top of my solar array here. The ATACR has a lot less chromatic aberration at 8x, in my opinion. This is the NX8, and we're not even in direct sunlight at this point. Here we go. I'm way off the scope. There you are. Very little chromatic aberration with that. Whereas our NX8, definitely a little more. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this review. I wanted to compare some of the intangibles between these, and hopefully you can make an informed decision and get the one you want. Be safe.